Welcome back, guys. Today we are here with Becky Hammel. I met her, so this is actually their first time meeting. We met through kind of a funny circumstance with one of my clients, who, she is basically their yogi. So became one of those things where we ended up communicating, kind of just talking about, working together as a team to help him out and everything like that. And then, what was going to be a 5-minute conversation ended up being an hour, and here we are. So, we're kind of talking a little bit before the podcast, but before we kind of dive into that, I suppose just for anybody watching, kind of give us the Cliff Notes version of Becky.
Oh my goodness, the Cliff Notes version. Where do we begin? Maybe we start working backwards of actually why I'm here, and then I'll go to conception.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I am actually here in this area because I had sold my beautiful home in the Bay Area, and I sold it not knowing where I was going to land, and truly living by faith and asking Spirit, God, insert word you like, universe, just show me the sparkly breadcrumb and being obedient to where I need to step. And I was guided to come to the Tahoe area because I love winter. And I needed an Airbnb that fit in with my budget and allowed pets. And then I landed at this beautiful place, which gave me the client. That's who I'm staying with. Okay. So that's why I'm here. And then working backwards is that I am originally from Kansas, but I've been all over the world living. I am a mom of three beautiful children. And I think this is one of the hardest questions to ask, give me the Cliff Notes versions of you.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. It's hard to go backwards. So California, and previous to that, I was in Kansas, Switzerland, England. I was a competitive athlete in college. I played golf. And now I really, really believe in yoga, mindfulness, raising happy children. Mm-hmm. I believe that our smiles are the most contagious. And that is the Cliff Notes. So we're going to just dig deeper as we move along.
How did you actually end up in the yoga mindfulness world?
Okay, so when I was 17, someone showed me a VHS tape of power yoga. It was a VHS tape, so that I'm 40. I'm just gonna make that known. And I played it, and this guy had this super cool Karate Kid headband, and he was like. And I just was like, what on earth? What is happening? What is this? And just whoa, I was so amazed by his breath and what he could do with his body. So that I was imprinted at about the age of 17 in a small town in Kansas. But on the flip side, at that time, yoga was bad. I, grew up in a very conservative, religious society and region from Kansas to Alabama, where it was yoga's the devil's work, which obviously makes it more tempting, right?
Sure.
You're like, let me dive deeper into that. So I dabbled in the yoga on and off through college and gyms, but, and then when I really, really got into yoga is when I was pregnant for the first time. I was living in England, and it was this midwifery, in England, the birth are ran by midwives, and they put on this yoga for prenatal and for moms. And it was the first time I felt that connection. So pulling in that breath, and there was this other being in my body, and I could feel, that's where I'm at. So yeah, isn't that beautiful? So I could connect to my body and that other spirit through breath. And it was taking the time for myself. And then the second birth, the same thing. I was living in Switzerland, and I was like, oh yeah, that thing, yoga, even though I had dabbled, and it was just different workouts. And it was the same, except this time I was in Switzerland, and it was in French, and it was beautiful, and got to connect to that soul inside me. And also I had a home birth, so it really set me up to have these beautiful, peaceful births. We're so sick. And she said, only you know what's going on, and only you can go and find that. And when you do, you'll be able to cure yourself. And when I left her office, I said, I choose to live. I put my hands out in this proclamation. I choose to live. I want to be here. And thank God I had a baby, because I also had something to live for. Mm-hmm. And I remember taking that first breath again. And because I kept saying, I choose to live, I choose to live, I could look in the mirror like a time-lapse camera and see myself healing. Mm-hmm. And then I said, in this kind of sleepy dream-like state, I'm moving to California. I know that's where I need to heal. I'm going to cut off all my hair. I'm going to start using cannabis, and I become a vegetarian. And everyone looked around
Every single one of your friends what the fuck is going on?
And then I kind of came out of that state, and all those things, I said, I just know I need to go there. It's where I need to heal. And then those things came. And then I found a yoga, I kept driving by this place, found a yoga studio, and my body just remembered, oh yeah, this is home. This is breath. And so my healing went to another trajectory. And asking someone about their yoga journey. We're getting there, you guys. So it's such a long story.
Could I pop in? Because there is one specific question that I had about something, and hold that spot, because I don't want us to be like, oh, where were we?
We're almost there.
But to where you're like, that was when I started, really, really shallow, restrictive breathing and stuff. Is there a time or a thing that you can go back to where you noticed that started being a thing?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how, trauma living in the body, where exactly does that start? When does trauma enter the body, and perhaps we jump out of it a little bit? So it's probably so many things compounded, and ancestral back, where you start taking those half breaths, mm-hmm. or suicidal thoughts.
Right.
So I'm not sure if I can pinpoint so many things in this lifetime of traumatic events that have happened, but where I don't know consciously about when did I stop breathing? When did I start? But I feel that a lot of it was I was drinking a lot of alcohol, and I was doing this thing where I pretended that I was okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably what it was pretending I was okay. And I think that puts a lot of constriction and oh my gosh, just forced smile. And you can already feel that in my body, oh, everything's fine. And I think that's what it was putting on that facade, mm-hmm. over and over and over again. Pretending gave me that half or shallow breath.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So anyway, carry on.
So yoga journey, started practicing and remembering, and how my body was just naturally transforming, and I was craving the practice again. And things started to elevate when I took the practice home. And then I got kicked out of a yoga studio. I don't know if you've ever heard of the too much woman, right? You're too loud, you're too this, and it was a very threatening thing that I was doing, bringing ideas and this and
hold on,
I was hosting retreats, and people would say, tell me about your retreats, and you can't solicit other people here, where whatever, which was the best thing that happened to me, as those things happen when the universe is always working for us, is that I had converted my garage into a yoga studio. So I kept cleaning out my garage, wondering why am I doing this? And it became this beautiful space. And I then asked two other homeschooling mom friends of mine who are also yoga teachers. I said, I have this idea. It started off with an app. It's called Village. And I want to I consciously want people to come together. And I said, I just want to scrap that app and make it, and then give what felt generous from a place of overflow. So we ran on abundance. And thus began my yoga journey. But I want to give the real Cliff Notes version. That was the long version, is that I homeschool these children, and I was asked to teach an art class and to 3-year-olds. And I set the supplies down and I turned away for maybe a half a second, and I look back and they're like putting glue and glitter all over themselves. And I was like, I am not getting paid for this, nor am I I'm not getting paid for this. And I could just feel everything. So the next week when I went to teach art, I took all the supplies, I lit a candle in the room, and I said, we're going to sit down and stare at this candle, these 3-year-olds, for a minute. And something awakened in me that, oh my gosh, these kids are meditating, and how they craved silence and how they craved stillness. They did not want all the glitter and the repurposed toilet paper rolls. They actually, like, their intelligence said, like, you have to, like, go through me first. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, you know that saying, until you stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah. And I was like, no, I will not let these kids not have their silence. Mm-hmm. So my formal training began with kids yoga, actually. Wow, so cool.
That is really cool.
And my passion is kids yoga, and I will fight so passionately for their silence, their stillness, and for them to love themselves. So my training began kids yoga. Then I got my Ayurvedic yoga teacher training, and I'm also trained in animal flow. And I think they're just a beautiful combination. So that's my yoga journey.
That's super cool. So there are surely parents out there. I mean, I can think of, like, without putting any real thought into this, I can think of a couple parents who are like, oh my God, I just can't get my kid to sit down. I just can't get my kid to be quiet. And then, you know, even crazier than that, you know, there's people, you know, our age who are, you know, just like, oh, there's no way, like, I can, you know, sit down and, you know, what they call do nothing, for a period of time. I mean, even something as simple as, there's like clients that I'll work with where I'm just like, hey, just, you know, crank out 1 minute of like really, really deep belly breathing. It's, I guess, where do you think that comes from? The, you know, people are not able to just stop and breathe, but then also as like a secondary question kind of tagged onto that, as far as parents being like, well, I can't get my kid to be quiet, you know, there's no way that they would ever do something like that, yada yada. What is your input? So we have lost that value of boredom, and so much comes out of boredom. And when we overstimulate, we then take away things like what happens when we go through boredom. So one, we don't value stillness or silence or boredom. And then, as we all know, what we say becomes. So when parents like, I can't get my kids to sit still, I can't get them to sleep, I can't. And then where our attention and our words go, that's only going to come back to us. So the more we say we can't get them to sit still, then we're only going to create that. But I hear that all the time. When I say to these children, you know, we'll build up, we start minute by minute, which each session. And then these children who can do it, we are born this way. And these parents like, how did you get to do it? So I tell the children always in the yoga class, your homework is to get your parents to join in with you. Oh, nice. Because that's really where it starts, you know, pulling the parents into it. And we have been ran on this masculine energy for so long, produce, show. And we're running on adrenal fatigue, right? Versus the feminine energy is very yin. And so I think, and look at how fucking crazy people are going now because of that. I mean, during that, I don't know about you, I loved that period of nothing.
I loved it.
Oh my
The entire thing is like, it's such a gift. Like, there's so much. You have all the time in the world.
Yeah, the first 3 weeks, it felt like yoga versus COVID. All Facebook was like, all the yoga teachers were doing this, and people were creating art, and like, oh wow, I have all this time. And it's expansive, and I think people really liked it, but because we weren't trained in it to really relish in it, we freaked out.
People really went kicking and screaming into it. I mean, even myself included, you know, the very, very first little bit when it, you know, when like gyms had finally shut down, I was like, holy shit, like I have to make so much more content. I have to do this and I have to do that. Like I have to make sure that I take care of my clients, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, just like overloaded. I mean, it was like a 3-week period where I just like didn't stop. And then it was just like, you know, like you hit a wall, and I was just like, oh my God, I need to slow down. And, you know, it got to the point where I you know, probably like TMI for anybody watching, but like I got to a point where I would like just sit like naked in my backyard and just like read every single morning. And like, that was my like chill, quiet thing. You know, there was like no issue. So I would just be out there by myself doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do. And then it was like, it's kind of nice not doing anything. And then, you know, I get back into meditation, get back into, you know, like just really focusing on like various kinds of breathing and everything like that. But it was like, it took 3 weeks of just nonstop. And it literally took me like hitting a wall where I was like, I can't do anything else before just like, and then like I finally get to enjoy nothing, you know?
Yeah. And then bringing this back to yoga, you know, everything in life could be a yoga practice, but the most important pose, and I hope you agree with me, is Shavasana, the final pose. And it's that full integration of all the work we do in the practice. And I say it's like making a cake. You can put all the ingredients together. It doesn't matter, like all these beautiful ingredients, but if you don't put it in the oven, it doesn't become fully integrated. It actually doesn't become a cake. Same with Shavasana. It's that integrate. We're going to rest and integrate. So I'm not working out. So we have lost our value of rest, repair, and rest some more. And so I feel that it took you maybe 3 weeks to say, oh, that's Shavasana. So I think as a society globally, the collective has practiced yoga and maybe a hard vinyasa flow, and just got out of didn't have it in their value system or to practice the rest and repair.
If you give me the name of that pose one more time.
Shavasana.
If y'all were going to try and explain that to anybody, because, you know, obviously we've got the visual side, but like for anybody who's just like listening to it, if you could like create like a verbal explanation for like what that would look like.
Shavasana's corpse pose is what it translates to, and it's a pose that incorporates a lot of like sense withdrawal. So you're laying basically neutral on your back, your feet are kind of spilling open and your hands are out to a V. Palms are skyward, and that is so that you're less distracted by the sense of touch, being connected to the earth. And yeah, they say sometimes that it's like the pose that kind of prepares you for like death in a sense, you know, being able to like fully let go. Like that's the pose that teaches that, right? The most like eloquence, I think.
I remember back when you and I were still at the gym that shall not be named, they had yoga classes. They had yoga classes there, and I remember them rapping with that. And I just remember coming from, I was so early in my fitness career, I remember trying to, I guess, overdo the pose, for lack of a better word, you know? So it's that clarification of like, you know, you just kind of let your feet naturally like spill open. I remember being super rigid, and I'm like laying there and like trying to like feel everything and stuff like that. And then like the yoga teacher like comes over to me, and she just kind of like taps the inside of my feet, and she just is like, let go. And I'm like, all day, like suddenly we're just, you know, laying and
start and end.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, we started that way too. So it's like, that's that's where we end. That's where we begin.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but like with Shavasana, and like you're saying, you know, throughout the flow, there's like all this mental fluctuation that's happening, like focusing on breath. Am I inhaling, exhaling? Can I go deeper? Can I hold this balance? And blah, blah, blah. Like at the end, Shavasana is like a test of the yoga practice, you know? It's like that equanimity where it's like, okay, like you did the work. Now there's a passive kind of aspect that you come into that has the most benefit. But if it's always like kind of how you're saying, like this, like forcefulness, this egocentric, focus to life that's like kind of giving the body like a sympathetic nervous system response, versus like that is kind of, in my opinion, like more of a parasympathetic. Like you're saying, it's like the rest and digest that it's going to help that kind of system get more active.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that through, all those different things.
Yeah, I like how you say, like, I'm going to be the best
I'm
at
gonna-
this
I'm gonna
pose.
yoga
I'm going to
the shit out of
Shavasana
this.
so hard.
Yeah.
I'm going to control it. And it's kind of like saying, I'm going to control death.
Mhm.
I'm going to hold on to it. And the pose is very much symbolic of death. It is called corpse pose, dead man's pose. Now, the beautiful thing about that, the next pose you do, you roll over into your side into a fetal position. And that pose is symbolic of renewal, rebirth. And here's what's beautiful about breath and yoga is that pose symbolic of reawakening. That's your inhale. And that pose prior, that pose of death, that letting go, full surrender is your exhale. And we always have a chance to let something go with our exhale. We always have a chance to, every time we breathe, that letting go. And every time we want to reawaken, renew, it's our inhale. And that's what's so beautiful. Those poses symbolic of letting go, reawakening. Exhale, let go. Inhale, rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for both of you because I know what mine would be on it, but is there a certain type of person that you see who is just like consistently like shallow breathing, like never really gets that full deep belly breath? Is there like a certain type of person, whether, and I suppose kind of interpret that however you want, but do you see like a specific person where it's like, they're gonna be a chest breather for sure?
I'll see. I'd love to hear what you say.
That's definitely a hard question. I don't want to like generalize and say, but I would say, I don't know, ones that may have like a lot of anxiety, stress, depression, or just like not have a lot of like self-regulating skill. I think a lot of times that reinforces that, this very shallow costal breathing where it's like straining the musculature of the body constantly to, create that space in the lungs. Like that's stress. That's mechanical stress. And so I think that compounded, the lungs are very much like a center for anxiety. That's where we store a lot of anxious emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't mean to generalize,
It's not. I'll kind of swing back to why I'm asking, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, and also mechanically, people who are mouth breathers, stress. Also, the lungs. The body tells a story everywhere. The lungs are known to where grief is stored. So anybody who has experienced grief or is unwilling to tap into their grief or befriend their grief, like, oh, too scary, too sensitive, I can't breathe there. So just, okay, I can live from here. Because if I go down there, I might feel if I take in so much. So there's that. And then I'm not so much, but yes, stress, anxiety, trauma, and then sometimes we can be afraid. What is the saying? Something about like we're afraid of our own greatness, our own light.
Mm-hmm.
So in yoga, the word for breath is pranayama, and it's that life force energy, right? And if you like take that in, you are breathing in God, the universe, and you're like, whoa, that's what it feels like to be full. And then that can trigger this response of, I don't deserve it, as I'm not enough. Who am I to fill up? So it can trigger so much other than mechanical grief, but your enoughness. And then there's body types who move through yoga and life differently. With Ayurveda, we take the 5 elements and we condense them basically to 3, and then we give them funny names: Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. Okay, so they're these like your soul body type, and so they manifest differently. So Pitta is they're fiery people, and they're passionate, but if you're out of balance, usually you're inflamed. And then finding the yoga that is right for your Pitta people, your Vata. So a lot of Pitta people, they're your go-getters, but usually they have digestive system because they're so hot. They run hot. And they love to do hot yoga and they like to sweat. But that takes them even like hotter, gotta go. They're the ones who leave Shavasana typically. But what to balance out their
Say
fire.
that one more time. Who do what?
Leave Shavasana.
Yeah.
Clarify
They're
what
like,
that
I'm
means. 'Cause if
out.
I
I
don't
gotta go,
understand
I
it,
gotta
they
go,
definitely
I gotta go.
don't.
Like at the end
Oh,
of the
okay,
class,
okay,
they're
gotcha.
like, I'm done.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
Oh, who leave Shavasana?
Right.
Got you. Like
leave
who?
it. They're like,
I
I
got
have
you.
to go do more important things.
Right.
To balance them out, typically we give them a nice restorative class. Pitta people hate it because they're not moving and producing. And then the Kapha people, their body soul types, they're the Mother Earth, they're nurturing. Their body manifests a little bit heavier. And
Client, and without fail, there's like a male type and a female type that I'll see where they have that really, really limited breathing, and it's usually guys that are super fucking angry, guys who are just mad and pissed off at everything, and like, everybody's an asshole except for them, basically. And then there is the more quiet, reserved, like female. It's like those are the two kinds of people that I always see. They can't take a full breath to save their life, and then it's like when they finally do, it's probably like the very first time that you ever did it, where it's just like, you really get that full breath and you're just like, oh my God, like, it finally hits them. But even the Pitta, the Vata, and the one more Kapha, even that kind of stuff, the clients who are Pitta is the fiery one, the clients that I've had who are super Pitta, to use your terminology, like that's the client where they're, working out 3 days a week with me, 1 day a week on their own, and then they're going and doing like, some Orange Theory class, and they're the one who's always like at number one, and they're the one who's like sweating more than anybody else. And then, they wake up at 4 a.m. and they want to go do some sprints, and it's like, holy shit, dude, like you need to slow down, you need to calm down, you need to, take a breath and like chill out. It's just craziness to me, that kind of connection where it feels like East meets West. You had said something else earlier before we actually turned the camera on, and it was just about your relationship with the reason I'm pointing back there is because there's kids.
They keep referencing these children that are like somewhere back. They actually are back there.
Yeah, they do exist.
But your relationship with their dad and mindfulness and stuff like that. I was wondering if you kind of go into that.
Their dad and mindfulness. Okay, so full disclosure, I am finalizing my divorce with their dad. And I just want to say, I really believe that divorce is not a dirty word. Divorce is not a dirty word, which I used to believe it was, which took me so long to complete and do this thing because I had to get over all my conditioning and story. What their dad and I are doing through our divorce, we couldn't do through our marriage. So it's actually beautiful. And, sometimes we have to break something to rebuild it, even
together.
Down to muscle, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to totally break it to build it together. I don't know exactly what we were talking about through mindfulness, but I'm very happy to share a little insight of how our little posse operates. And one, breaking this belief system of nuclear family and that it has to look a certain way. And again, that was that pretending, like our fucking Christmas cards, like, or Facebook. Like, how many times do we hear people like, I can't stand this. And then
hi,
like,
everyone, here's how
look at me,
terrible things are going right now.
Me and my Facebook, and these like pledges on Facebook of, I love my person, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's that veneer. So I really needed we broke it. But in doing so, we got to create our family values. And when they're with their dad, the hardest thing I have to do is let go, because he's an amazing dad. And I'm kind of like you, like I've got to control it and puppeteer everybody, but that takes an insane amount of energy. So when the kids are with me and we have we call it a family meeting, and I'm just really passing this on because we don't often get tips and tricks of how to have life with children. So what we do, and it took us a long time to really get this well oiled, is that we have a family meeting and we sit down on the floor as all 4 of us. And I feel that one of the reasons that you come to the floor is that we're all equals with equanimity. And I set a timer for about 1 to 3 minutes. We just sit in silence. And I simply ask that no one touch one another. Like, space is really important because we're in each other's business all the time. Then we come out of our meditation and we do our affirmations. And these are just custom ones that we made up as we go. And we also tap. We can talk about tapping and what it is, and actually how tapping has saved my life. I have been in circumstances where tapping saved my life. And EFT, what does it stand for? Do you guys know?
EFT.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It stands for something, but you tap.
Electronic something.
Blah, 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 blah. And you tap and you say your affirmations, and whoa, it really works.
This is like anchoring? Is that what it is?
Maybe.
There's so much like EDMR therapy.
Yeah, you actually tap parts in your body. So I can give a demonstration. Like, somebody might say, although I'm really nervous to do this podcast, I'm going to show up anyway. Or that is not one of our affirmations, or
almost like future projecting.
Yeah, you're also like, I am safe. This is the one that saved my life. I am safe and I'm surrounded by love. I am safe and I'm surrounded by love. And
is there any significance between...
There's different places, top of the head, under the eyes, here, jaw, throat, under here, the karate chop here. There's so much research on it. I don't know enough other than we do it and I trust it and I know it works.
And you felt value from it.
Oh yeah. So EFT, you do your own research. Just start
Check
tapping. And the other thing it does is that actually it hits your like thymus gland, your different glands. So you're actually moving some of your lymph. So if you don't believe in the woo-woo part, be like, oh yeah, at least I'm going to get my lymph going. You can still look
at it from a Western mindset. Yeah. That's what I always end up doing with people when it comes to breath. Cause it's like, no matter what, like I'll have people where I'm like, yeah, I know that, putting it in the, way that I've experienced it, where it's like, oh, like you're breathing, you feel this, you feel blah, blah, blah. I'm always like, hey, breathing deeply is a huge part of like detoxing your body. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay, cool. And then it's like, there's some people that you can connect super easily with Western. There's some people that it's like, they need that Eastern view. So it's nice to kind of have both of them. But sorry, did you have?
Oh, I could just keep going. I'll just finish the things that we do for our family. We do our affirmations, we tap, we go around saying what we're grateful for and what would make the day great, because I want these children and all children to know that they are the creators of their day. When you create, you start with your morning, you create your day. When you create your days, you create, your chapters and going on like what, and having the ability to speak it into existence and asking every day, what would make today great for you? And it's amazing how those come to fruition. And it's not, and plus as a parent, it takes a load off me to create and control everything. Mm-hmm. And then we always go for a walk. And I feel like if we do that, it's enough. Everything else after that is a bonus. We close the day at dinner time. We sing to our food. We sing to me, because bring vibration to the food and appreciation. And I think a lot of families like prayer. A lot of times people were triggered because like they're forced to pray or whatever if they grew up religious. So I wanted to still have a prayerful intention, but through song. So we pray before we eat by singing. And then we go around saying what we liked about the day. I think that's a really important question for everybody to close out the day. What was the highlight of your day, or what did you like? And if it's okay, if you want to throw in a low light, what was hard? Mm-hmm. And then we do this thing called appreciation, where we take the time to appreciate each person in our family. So that's how we practice with my crew mindfulness.
So they're pretty young, and I'm thinking back through my own childhood, and I was raised Christian, and I remember there being a point where I was, totally in on doing like prayer before dinner. I remember all these various things. Have you ever received any pushback from them on that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, eye rolling, singing like, I hate you, Mom, for making us sing. Absolutely. And I don't think they would be human or children if they didn't push back. And I want that. I want to allow for the pushback, and I want to push them back. So my children have made me who I am. I didn't know who I was until I became a mom. And I said, I will never get married, and I'll never, never, never have kids. But if I do, I'm going to homeschool them. But I'm never having kids. And I didn't know who I was or who I was to become. 3 kids later, and I actually had a miscarriage not that long ago. And that's another thing I think that, you know, we have like shame over divorce, and we don't talk about this thing that happens to so many women.
Yeah.
This thing called miscarriage. So, that is also a part of me. That's also my huge story. And I think, you know, the body tells story if we listen to it. Right after I didn't know we were going to segue to this, but look at me, man, segue. A few hours after my miscarriage, we were in Yosemite. We were on a family trip with another family. We had a shared Airbnb, and everybody, so there's, 12 of us. I don't know where they went, but someone knocks on the door and I have to answer. I just had this thing that happened. And I'm like, I don't even know if I know how to answer a door anymore. Yeah. And as soon as I open it, these people ask me if we can move a car so they could park there. And I just really needed them to know I just had a miscarriage just a few hours ago. But I carried on like, yeah, we'll move it. And all I wished for was this bubble above my head. Like, I wish you could see what's really going on with me. And likewise, I wish I could really know what's going, like, who are you? Just above your head. Yeah. So it really got me thinking that actually that really does happen. Our bodies tell our story, our face, our eyes, if we would just give everybody a chance to tell it and an opportunity to give somebody to listen to it.
With that miscarriage story and the people, was it just like one of those moments where it was like you had just gone through this challenging thing and it was just you being like fuck dude, like I need some human connection right now, like I need someone to understand this hard thing that I just went through? Like was it kind of that, or? No,
it was that there was humans approaching me, and it was like they asked a simple question, could you move your car? And it was like, yes, but I just need to let you know if I look at you funny, or if I start, like all those thoughts just went through my mind. Like, what if I cry?
So it was like this, hey, like if I seem wild right now.
Yeah, if I don't know how to move a car.
Yeah.
But my body just I went on automatic pilot, like, yeah, welcome to Yosemite. And yeah, move the car.
Things are fine.
The real thing I want to tell you, stranger, is this.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, it's tough, dude. Like bottling shit up, and it was probably like terrible going through that too, and having nobody to say it. Like, you know, people like in your sphere and stuff like that, who like there would be no barrier, like just having that moment where it's like I need to keep this in for who knows how long.
Well, we're just again conditioned to put on that facade, and I don't know. I'm just going to speak, especially as a woman. We have to look a certain way. And as a mom, our kids have to behave a certain way. We have to come across like, oh yeah, ready for it. Like I'm pretty and look at all these other things I can do. We don't often see our brokenness and our humanness and our femaleness. We don't talk about the shattering, the bleeding, the mess very often, or we don't get to see it. Especially now when everything is projected on a screen, how perfect we have to be and hold it together. But my miscarriage, it was really beautiful. That was the first and only one I've had. But what it did for me was give me a compassion towards women that I'd never had before, a rite of passage as a woman that I'd never had before, and this grace and this understanding for females, and especially myself. So it's the most painless thing I've ever experienced, but it is still part of my story. And I bring that to say, with the body telling a story and having compassion for myself and self-love, because I believe there's so many things that can put violence in the body, comparison being one of those things. Comparison to others, but comparison to my past and my future. You know, a picture of my body not that long ago was just this super fit body. And now the grace and compassion I give myself is the story I get to tell. The story this body gets to tell is that it's recovering from a miscarriage. And it gets to tell that story. I don't actually need the bubble on my head. That's what's so beautiful. Our bodies get to tell, like dark circles under the eyes might get to tell a story of, I stayed up all night nursing a baby, or soothing this, or writing my paper, you know,
partying and having a good time.
Yeah, or, you know, you were getting it. Who knows? But that's the beautiful part of the body. And one of my missions is to just truly love this body, love ourselves. And when we do, what a beautiful story we get to tell.
I had one more big question that Dustin, I'm so sorry. Her and I talked for so long because we had this like long phone conversation. So I had so much shit that I was like, oh my God, I want to get into this. So there were like several things that you had said throughout this where I was like, I need to remember to ask this.
Did you remember?
I did.
Oh my gosh, you were so good at remembering.
Here we are. So you have 2 sons. And one of the huge things that has come up in recent years is this phrase, toxic masculinity. And I guess being a mom, raising boys, I had walked through, I can't remember what store it was, but I was walking through it was like a Walmart with a friend, and there's all this like girl power, girl boss, this, that, yada, yada, on all the clothes. And then it was just like, none of that stuff really for young boys. And I had this little part of me where I was like, man, when I grew up, there were 3 jobs, like in my mind as a kid. You could be in the army, you could be a firefighter, you could be a cop. Basically 3 life-risking things. And I don't know that it painted this in my head so much as it became something that I kind of started to think about as I got older. But it was this idea that kind of came into my head of, these are 3 jobs that are expendable.
What it does. So the best way I can describe it, and I could bring these boys in here and they can repeat this. I really think it's important to say, like, don't be like this. Don't be like this, like, because then you're like so attracted to that energy, right? Where we were saying like, my kids can't sit still, they can't sit still. Like, oh my God, don't be toxic masculine and watch, So
I feel like I remember hearing something about your body doesn't connect to negatives.
Right. We actually don't hear the word. We don't hear the not. So all we hear is be this.
Yeah.
And when I can relate this to golf, like when you see your target, it's like, don't hit it. Look, don't hit it over here. All your body hears, hit it over here.
Yeah.
So we keep our eyes where attention goes, energy flows. So let's keep our attention. The exalted masculine, the divine masculine, is to serve and exalt the feminine. So here's my 2 examples, is the river and the riverbank. The male, the masculine, in its divine form is the riverbank. It's there to contain the river. But what happens when it's toxic? Well, you can like hold that river and say, I'm going to control you. And when it happens to the water, it becomes stagnant. It's then the feminine is there toxic. Nut says, I will do whatever I can to hold you. The power of the river, the feminine, can make a Grand Canyon. Then that water flows and it can direct, and I need to go here. So the man holds that feminine and does this. So I think like telling our young boys, like, your job is to hold and contain and bring the beauty. Like, we can't have beauty unless if you're not holding it. So also one more little example is flowers, the feminine being that beautiful flower. And if I just took those flowers and dropped them, they would be scattered and they'd be useless. But if the divine masculine exalts that feminine, puts it in a vase, oh my gosh, all of a sudden it's showcased. So it's that balance of bringing it all into harmony. But, that sounds like so esoteric, especially to a 7 to 10-year-old boy, but they get it.
That
Like-
was such a good analogy.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. That was so good.
Doesn't-
I really liked that.
Every young man deserves to be like, oh, I'm here to serve and to bring you up. And that's the masculine. Every young, like whether you're in the army or firefighter or a personal trainer, like, I got you. And then we see it. But of course there is its shadow side, what happens when it goes the other way. And I think that's generations of abuse and toxicity and be a man. You don't cry, you don't feel. And so we let these boys feel. You feel it. And teaching these young boys and my daughter as well, a nonviolent communication. And when even today, I have to admit, I was like a little nervous to come here because I have to be on time. And I also have to get my kids homeschooled. I have to find something to wear. I'm living out of a suitcase and I had all these things. And so I can feel that things coming. And I told young Rocco, I said, like, I need to do this. And he just kind of stopped. He said, like, you're being so, he broke down. And I just had to stop. And I just said, tell me how you're feeling. Can we imagine if these young boys got